John McClain, NFL Hall of Fame writer, with us in his regular segment. John, minicamps are underway all over the NFL, where the veterans and rookies get to see each other for the first time, and it is, it's the Underwear Olympics, but it is where contract talk kind of comes to a head, and more quarterbacks and people are getting extended. But again, like another week, no Dak extension. We had Jared Goff last week. Who do you think is next? Is it Tua or is it Trevor Lawrence?
Let me say something first, Paul, about Baylor. For the first time in my life, I watched Baylor softball this weekend with my good buddy Gary Horn from Waco and Baylor. And we watched every game they played in the regional, and I want to congratulate them. I remember when Tom Stanton, that was 20 years ago, hired Glenn Moore to be the softball coach, paid him a lot of money. And people said, my God, how could you pay that kind of money for a softball coach? And he's done a tremendous job, and I hope they beat Florida. Now, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence are the quarterbacks that I think will be taken care of first. I think Dak Prescott will go right up till the season. If they don't do it before the season, they'll have to do it after the season. Then they'll get in a bidding war. So I think all three will have extensions or new deals by the start of the regular season. Because the longer you wait, and you know this, Paul, because remember when they could have signed Dak 2 years before they did, and they ended up paying even more? Stephen Jones said, yeah, we should have listened. So the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. And I think the first one to sign will be Trevor Lawrence, and then Tua, and then Dak.
John, no, OTA starting up here. Tank Dell being at practice, or I guess at the workouts was notable after accidentally being shot. I know it wasn't a close call per se, but just what a scary situation. Just what's kind of been the reaction to Tank Dell and that, potentially close call out in Florida?
First of all, Greg, if you got to get shot, that's the way you get shot.
Yeah, right?
Hadn't slowed him up at all. We watched him going full speed today now. They're not in full uniforms. They can't put on pads in the off season. But to see him out there running routes and catching the ball from C.J. Stroud, we knew he'd been working out. But still, he's from Florida. He was an innocent bystander when a 16-year-old got in a dispute and pulled out his pistol, shot people. And it's amazing that they weren't killed. And when you hear it, like anybody being shot, but especially one of your best players whose season ended in the 11th game with a fractured fibula, there's a huge sigh of relief. And the Texans with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs, and then tight end Dalton Schultz, who was re-signed, other than the 49ers and maybe the Lions, there's not another team that can put out a group of four like they can.
John, the schedule was released last week. How you've been at this a long time. How do you assess how it looks on the surface? Because again, so many things change from year to year. You can look at it right now and look like, oh well, they have a pretty palatable schedule early on, and then it gets a little tougher in the middle. But who knows, right? But what do you think about the Texans' schedule in a season where they'll have more expectations than they've had in 5 or 6 years?
They've gone from playing the last place division, the NFC South, with their crossover game, Arizona, at NRG Stadium, to playing a first-place schedule with 5 division champions and 11 games against teams that had winning records, and their crossover game is at Arlington. So it's tougher. They should be better, but it's going to be so much tougher. The last time they did this, 2019, when they won the AFC South, beat Buffalo in the playoffs, and blew that game at Arrowhead Stadium, they came back and played the first-place schedule. The first 4 were killers, They started 0-4, fired Bill O'Brien, named Romeo Cornell interim coach, and his first game was Jacksonville, and they won. So it's going to be tougher. They know it. One of the things when you play as many great teams, great offenses, and great quarterbacks, that's why they signed 14 defensive free agents, re-signed 4 of theirs, and drafted 5 defensive players. I'm writing a story tomorrow for HoustonTexans.com about their secondary and all the changes it'll undergo, and primarily because of who they're playing.
John, I think we probably asked you about this before, and I know that the Texans were busy this offseason as far as cornerbacks go, but is there any interest, do you think, in the former Baylor star and Houston native and Xavier Howard? And for a guy like him, whether that's a yes or a no, what's kind of the timeline like for a guy like that right now, where it's this weird part pre-training camp, you're an older corner with a formerly huge price tag? Like what's going on his end of things, do you think, or his agent's end of things right now?
Guys need to figure out, Craig, that if at their age, when they've made as much money as they did and they're not as good as they were, sometimes it's hard for them to come to grips that nobody's going to pay what they want. And Xavier Howard is one of those. And there was a lot of talk about him coming to Houston. They signed 2 guys, Jeff Okuda, 3rd overall pick 3 years ago, C.J. Henderson, 9th overall pick. The Texans are their 3rd team. Both of them have been huge disappointments. Miko Ryans told us today he doesn't care what they did in the past. Their slates are clean. And they drafted Maury Lassiter, 2nd round, their first pick. So they don't have a room for a guy like Xavier Howard. He and his agent going to have to figure out. He's going to probably end up with a base salary of about $1 million, with a lot of incentives that he can achieve. But I think at this point, he needs to just make sure he's somewhere before it started training camp. Not everybody can be like Devian Clowney, who has been basically a mercenary who doesn't sign so close to the regular season.
Yeah, does he just hate training camp?
Well, everybody hates training camp, Paul. He's just one willing to lose money to avoid it because he's made a lot of money, but certainly not what he could have made as the first overall pick in 2014. Had he signed an extension, the Texans offered $75 million, but he wanted over $100, and they were already paying J.J. Watt $100. You can't pay 2 guys as edge rushers $100 million.
John, have you read much on the Jaden Rashada suing Florida situation?
Oh, I have, because it's such an interesting story, and I wonder how much of it is true. But it's a year ago, or whenever I first started hearing about it, I was like, oh my God! But now so many things have happened. You're like, that's not surprising.
Did you ever think we'd see the day where a college coach would get sued for making a promise that he apparently couldn't keep to a high school recruit?
Well, first of all, they didn't get it in writing. That shows you when you got guys that age, they better have better people representing them, because it's going to come down to each other's word. But the sheer numbers that they were willing to give that to him is just mind-boggling. And he's never done anything to merit it. And it just shows you kind of how crazy NILs are and college football is. If the kid's making that kind of money, and you tell him, hey, you're not putting out, go over there and run 3 laps after practice. He says, no, sir, I'm going to the bank. I get another $250,000 check I got to deposit.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy money for a guy who has not played much at all still at this point in his college career, but looks like he's going to probably end up with most of that money he was promised as a result of this lawsuit. We'll see on that front. John, any feelings on the Astros these days?
Craig, you picked the wrong day to ask me. because they played a pathetic game last night, the worst of a bad season, up 6-1. Framber Valdez is rolling in the field. Never given up more than 2 home runs in a game in his career. He is up 2 3-runs and a solo in the same inning. They lose 9-7 to one of the worst teams in baseball. And every opportunity I've had today, beginning with my TV spot on the local Fox station this morning, I have been blasting them a new one. And everybody says, oh, there's so many more games left. And I judge them game by game. And right when they've been playing so well, they lose to the Angels. They don't have Ohtani and they don't have Trout. It was just pitiful.
John, but they're only 5 games back. Most of the West is beset by injuries. You know, the Rangers don't even have close to their full lineup. I mean, there's still time, or do you think this is a team that needs to make a couple moves to the lineup?
No, I think they got Luis Garcia, who won 15 games 2 years ago. He's coming back after the All-Star break from Tommy John surgery. Lance McCullers is throwing bullpen sessions, but I don't know if McCullers, who's had so many elbow issues, will ever come back. I've been saying for years he ought to be a closer, not a starter. But they got a lot of pitchers who are about to be healthy. For some reason, they're bringing Jose Abreu back from their rookie league team, where they sent him because he was awful. And since he left, it's not him, but they went on a winning streak. They went on this pace that was like they used to, and they pulled within, I think, 4.5. They're very fortunate. The Rangers have been mediocre, and the Mariners have been just a little better than mediocre, which means any one of the 3 can win it. I still think it's going to be a very, very interesting race. And I know the Rangers, the Rangers weren't great regular season last year, but it just shows you can do what the Rangers did last year, still win a World Series.
Absolutely. John, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again next week.
Guys, my pleasure. Thank you very much, and good luck with the Baylor softball team.
There you go. John McClain, Hall of Fame writer with us. Craig, I know that you said the website